Hello and welcome to a brand new series on HITC Football called What If, where we take a look at an alternate timeline if some key moments in football history had gone differently. Today we're going to look at how the footballing world could have changed if Sergio Aguero hadn't scored that goal against QPR in 2012. This is a timeline that affects the likes of Robin van Persie, David Moyes, Harry Redknapp, Roberto Martinez, and it even sees France overthrown a new 2018 World Cup champions crowned. That single swing of Aguero's boot won Manchester City their first Premier League title with the final kick of the season, pipping their rivals Manchester United to the league that year. Paddy Kenny himself loves to joke with United fans that he should have saved that shot, but how differently would things have turned out if he had? We're going to start with the obvious. Manchester United would have been the 2011-12 Premier League champions if Aguero hadn't scored that goal against QPR. So, with United winning that title ahead of City, what changes? 2012 was just 1 year before Sir Alex Ferguson decided to call time on his historic career. Fergie, of course, stayed to win one last title after the Aguero heartbreak, but if he'd achieved that feat a year early, would he have stayed at Old Trafford? There's every reason to believe that Ferguson would have retired on the spot if United had secured their 13th Premier League title that year, and that 1 year difference could change so many things within football. With Ferguson gone, who would United turn to at that point in time? Well, it seems as though David Moyes probably still would have gotten that job. After all, he was pretty much handpicked by his fellow Scot. However, if Moyes takes over that team in 2012 rather than in 2013, things may well have gone differently for him at Old Trafford. He would be inheriting a squad 1 year younger and a team that would, in our reality, win the title that very next year. Now, we're not going to sit here and argue and say that Moyes would have won the title if he'd been appointed in 2012. That squad had some serious issues. But at the same time, with Wayne Rooney, Patrice Evra, Nemanja Vidic, Rio Ferdinand all 1 year closer to their prime years, Moyes might have had a chance of doing something with that team. Moyes could easily have appeased the Glazer family and achieved that top four finish that the American owners are always so desperate for, and with 1 year's worth of experience under his belt, he could have gotten on with the rebuild that United so desperately needed at that point. Moyes' time at West Ham has shown, and is still showing, that he knows how to pick out a talented player, so if he's given more time to build that squad in his own vision, perhaps he gets on better at United. If Aguero missed that chance against QPR, perhaps Moyes gets more of a chance to construct his own squad and kick on at Old Trafford. So, if Moyes is at United in 2012, where does that leave Everton? The Toffees, of course, went for Roberto Martinez after Moyes left them in 2013, off the back of his FA Cup win with Wigan. But in 2012, the Spaniard stock was nowhere near as high as it was just 1 year later. So who do Everton go for? That summer was the summer that Harry Redknapp parted ways with Tottenham, despite leading Spurs to a 4th place finish, and while he would eventually join QPR that November, a vacancy at Everton after Moyes' departure to Old Trafford would have been an opportune move for Redknapp. Unfortunately for this version of Everton, Redknapp's powers were declining by this point. Spurs let him go for a reason, and his time at QPR wasn't the best to say the least. In typical Redknapp fashion, he made a number of questionable signings, including Nico Cranchar for the millionth time, and his results on the pitch just weren't good enough. Redknapp probably wouldn't have done as well as Martinez did at Everton, but there'll be more about him later. We've spoken enough about how United and Everton would have been affected by this miss, but of course the biggest losers in this scenario would have been Manchester City. Aguero's goal ended a 44-year wait for a title for City, and if he hadn't ended that unfortunate streak, we have to imagine that the citizens' hunger for success would only have grown. With United perhaps resting on their laurels after this title win, we think that a City team that came so close to tasting success that year would have made sure they went out and won the race to sign Robin van Persie that summer. Let's not forget, in real life the Dutchman had the choice between City and United, but with the Red Devils desperate to catch their rivals once more, they went all out to sign the Arsenal striker. But perhaps that won't be the case in this reality. Van Persie was arguably the best striker on the planet at that point, and if he joined City, we think the 2012-13 title race was only going to end up going one way. With Moyes taking over from Fergie in our hypothetical universe, City had a clear path to the title next year, and the addition of Van Persie would have fired them to glory. However, it may not have only been the Premier League they won that season. Cast your mind back to the summer of 2013 and you'll remember City falling just short in the FA Cup against Wigan Athletic. However, with Van Persie in that squad, a notoriously brilliant big game player, perhaps that final would have gone in a different direction, and if it did, that would lead to one last butterfly effect, and perhaps the biggest of the lot. We said earlier that there'd be more to come about Roberto Martinez, and we're not going to disappoint. If a Robin van Persie inside Manchester City side beat Wigan in that final, then Martinez's career would have been so different. Think about it. That FA Cup win was the springboard that launched the Spaniard's career at the top level, but without that unlikely triumph on his CV, he's really just a manager who played some pretty football at Wigan, but ultimately ended up taking the Lancashire club down. Even if Harry Redknapp flopped at our university's version of Everton, Martinez doesn't get the job at Goodison Park without the FA Cup win, and without making that step, there's no way he ever gets near the Belgian job. So, after Belgium sacked Mark Wilmots in 2016 after losing to Wales, where did he turn? Well, former Royal Belgian Football Association President Francois de Keersmaker may have already given us the answer. Louis van Gaal might be a potential candidate, de Keersmaker said after getting rid of Wilmots. Van Gaal himself actually admitted to turning down the Belgium job that summer, saying, "It would have been really great if I had become the Belgium national coach, but I was so resentful and vindictive that I let that job go by." Van Gaal was scorned by the fact he'd been sacked by Manchester United and his wages were still partially being covered by the Red Devils, so taking a new job at that time wouldn't really benefit him all that much. However, in our world, David Moyes gets more time at Old Trafford, so that wage issue may not have stopped him from taking this job. And if Van Gaal manages Belgium to the 2018 World Cup instead of Martinez, things could go very differently. Say what you will about Van Gaal, and I'm sure many of the Manchester United supporting viewers will have their opinions. He's an incredible manager in tournaments. He made 2 Champions League finals with Ajax, winning one of those. He made another Champions League final against the odds with Bayern Munich in 2010, while he's won no fewer than 7 major cup competitions in his career. Van Gaal came so close to reaching the World Cup final with a rather unfancy Netherlands team in 2014, and with Belgium going into the tournament 4 years later with one of the best squads in the competition, there's reason to believe they could have gone all the way with the Dutchman at the helm. The more you think about it actually, the more this looks like a squad built for Van Gaal and the 3-4-3 diamond system he used to so much success at Ajax. Belgium's weaknesses have always been at fullback in recent years, but this formation would completely bypass any of those issues. A back 3 consisting of Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen and Vincent Kompany would have been almost impossible to get past. For all of his limitations, and there are many of them, Marouane Fellaini could have been brilliant in the Frank Rijkaard role at the base of that midfield diamond. Meanwhile, Moussa Dembele and Axel Witsel are perfect modern day counterparts of Clarence Seedorf and Edgar Davids. Kevin De Bruyne would have been so at home as a traditional number 10, playing in the way Jari Littmanen used to do for Ajax, feeding Eden Hazard, Romelu Lukaku and Dries Mertens in a front three that encourages dribbling, speed and crossing, the main strengths of those players. In reality, Belgium were eliminated by France at the semi-final stages via a Samuel Umtiti header that year, but a team built in Van Gaal's total football vision would likely have overwhelmed a France side that really didn't create too much on the day. Not to take anything away from the Croatia team that made the final, but it's fair to say that they were no match for Belgium on paper, and if Van Gaal was in the dugout, we may well have been looking at new world champions. Sergio Aguero's goal versus QPR is one of the most important goals in football history, but if he missed that chance that day, the whole footballing universe could have been turned on its head. Theoretically, David Moyes gets more time at Manchester United, Harry Redknapp has an underwhelming spell at Everton, Robin van Persie kickstarts a mini spell of English dominance for Manchester City, which could have had a knock-on effect on Pep Guardiola's future, while a Louis van Gaal-led Belgium win the 2018 World Cup ahead of France. What do you think? How would your club look different if Aguero missed against QPR? I'm a Fulham fan myself, so Van Persie joining Man City in this world probably would have meant that we never signed Dimitar Berbatov in 2012. The possibilities are endless on this one, so let us know your theories in the comments below.